It looks like it could be a scene from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but this isn't chocolate. It's molasses. A byproduct of sugarcane, molasses can be turned into ethanol, essentially a highly distilled and concentrated alcohol to power engines. Cane growers, mill owners, scientists and even politicians believe it could help secure Australia's fuel future.
This energy crisis is worse than previous oil shocks.
The greatest energy crisis in global history.
Fears about a supply shock.
The conflict involving the United States, Israel and Iran and the blockade of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has exposed Australia's reliance on fuel imports.
We've gone from producing 80% of our own fuel 20 years ago to now in Australia only producing about 20% of our own fuel.
We're teetering on an edge of a fuel crisis in Australia, and we can't leave solutions on the table, let alone really good solutions. And ethanol is a good solution.
Is it too simple to think an ethanol mandate for Australian fuel could ensure petrol stations never run dry? Ash Salandini is the CEO of Australian Sugar Manufacturers.
One of the sort of old trite sayings is never let a crisis go to waste. So we're at a crisis-opportunity where essentially, we have this opportunity to use ethanol to get us through this crisis, but there's a long-term play here as well. In this industry, we can make billions of litres of ethanol, and that's not just for petrol, that's for biodiesel, sustainable aviation fuel. So it's not just for about this crisis, it's about the crisis that might come in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, so we'll never be in this position ever again.
Internationally, high ethanol blends have been used and mandated for decades. Brazil has the highest at 30%, India 20%, and the largest oil producer in the world, the United States, has an ethanol blend mandate of 10%. Meanwhile, Australia's asking for a minimum of 2%.
Cane growers say stronger mandates are the missing piece to building a sustainable biofuel industry from sugar.
Supporting regional communities as well.
Mark Greenwood is General Manager of Commercial at Wilmar Sugar and Renewables. He says the company can manage a 2% mandate, but to meet mandates like those overseas, they would require a major investment before governments are willing to adopt them. The federal government's increasing focus on electrification, he says, is one reason for the hesitation.
But still, today, we consume still 16 billion litres of gasoline. So ethanol capacity could accelerate the decarbonisation of that road transport sector. And then in time, that ethanol capacity is not going to be wasted. You can divert that ethanol towards sustainable aviation fuel, because for the airline industry, there is no other way to decarbonise long-haul flights. We will need it.
In the Queensland town of Mackay, the German-based Nordzucker company owns 3 mills. It buys directly from growers, rails it to the mills to make raw sugar, molasses and energy using the waste byproduct bagasse to produce steam and electricity. And it's a very large operation. Carl Morton is the CEO.
We're the second biggest sugar producer in Australia, so just behind Wilmar. And so, yeah, we think we're reasonably important. So we're doing, as we said, about that 5.3 million tonnes.
For the last couple of years, we've been hearing about mills closing down all over the place, cane farmers getting out of sugar. You guys are investing heavily. Why?
Well, we see a real future in cane sugar. It's really interesting. Nordzucker, you would think, why is a European business that's predominantly in sugar beet in Europe investing in cane? And they see real benefits in cane long term. And the real reason for that is our renewable energy.
Sugar and its byproducts are a sustainable, renewable source of energy. The ethanol it produces is a low-carbon alternative to fossil fuels. It's made from agricultural waste and byproducts of starch-rich plants like wheat, grain, sorghum and sugarcane. That's where the molasses comes in.
We currently make 360 million litres of ethanol across Australia, and that's around 3% of Australia's petrol demand. Or put it in another way, that's nearly 9 days' worth of petrol reserves and a third of our current petrol reserves in Australia. So it's a huge opportunity to this current crisis.
Ethanol is the most common of biofuels and has been around for nearly 200 years. Professor Ian O'Hara, Deputy Dean of Engineering at the Queensland University of Technology, is an expert on its production.
They've been producing it extensively for 30 or 40 years, and millions of cars have used it very successfully. It's reduced pollution, it's reduced their carbon emissions, but really importantly, it's provided a great income stream for farmers in those countries.
Australia has 2 ethanol refineries. Manildra operates the largest in Bomaderry in New South Wales, using grain to make ethanol. Queensland also had a grain-based refinery in Dalby, just under 3 hours west of Brisbane, until it closed in 2020. The remaining refinery is in the coastal town of Sarina, located in the heart of sugarcane country in North Queensland, and half an hour from Mackay. It's been manufacturing ethanol for nearly 100 years. It's a straightforward process, as James Wallace, Wilmar's General Manager of Operations, explains.
The process, yeah, it's really, I'll try not to go too technical, but we take our molasses, which is our byproduct from raw sugar production. We mix it with some water and ferment it with a yeast. And that yeast then will convert the leftover sugars into alcohol.
Renee Hall works in the lab in the Sarina facility, breaking it down a bit further.
This is where it all begins. So we get our stock yeast, which is in the fridge there. We sterilise some molasses, which is the feed for the yeast, and we inoculate it with the yeast, and it sits on the incubator for a little while, and you can actually see the ring of yeast that's growing around the flask there. So that flask then gets put into a slightly bigger flask, and then it goes into the fermentation process.
Under the right temperature and with the correct measurement, it takes just 5 days to create ethanol. Simple.
The yeast then produce ethanol from that, and these are our 4 grades of ethanol that we produce here. So we've got 3 clean grades, and then we've got our fuel grade, which contains most of the impurities.
Ethanol has been questioned since the 1990s about its suitability for Australian vehicles.
Ethanol is very safe to use in vehicles. Most vehicles in Australia now, petrol vehicles, can use ethanol at 10% or even much beyond 10%, up to 20%, without any trouble at all. Equally, biodiesel is another good fuel which you can use in diesel vehicles, and it can equally be used at 10% or higher percentages without any problems.
The sugar industry is keen to grow Australia's biofuel to help protect it from global trends. It's facing a new demand shock as weight loss drugs reduce consumer appetite for sugary products. This rapid change in eating habits has caused demand to fall much faster than expected. Sugar is a global commodity, and Australian sugar competes in an international market where subsidies often push prices down. Joseph Borg, chairman of Mackay cane growers, says bigger players have a major influence on price.
The Brazilian crop is the key to this. The old saying says when Brazil sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. So they control a lot of the price. It's supply and demand, but there are speculators and other things that affect it.
For him, the key to a sustainable sugar future here is simple: ethanol mandates.
We need government mandates to be implemented and enforced. E10 has been around for years and years. Why isn't it E40, E50, E60? Enforce it, set a price on it, and let's get some diversification going.
New South Wales and Queensland are the only 2 states with ethanol mandates. In New South Wales, it's 6%, and in Queensland, 4%. To meet that mandate, New South Wales fuel retailers need 60% of total petrol sales to be E10. E10 means it's 10% ethanol. Queensland MP Robbie Katter from the state's northwest is a vocal advocate for ethanol. His party pushed for the state's implementation of the 4% mandate in Queensland.
I think there's just something good about growing our own fuel. I think there's a good ring to it, and it makes sense. It's a renewable resource. Sugar has been a wonderful product, ignoring the grain and others and the seed crops at the moment, but sugar's been a wonderful thing for our environment.
Is it something that the state can go alone, or does it need to be a national mandate?
You know, the state's going to keep saying, oh, it's better done federally. They do that. Labor did it before, Liberals saying it now. And usually it's because they're too gutless to just do it themselves. So they, you know, if they want to lead and throw some, if they want to show some leadership on the issue, yes, they could do it tomorrow themselves.
The question remains, is ethanol profitable?
One of the challenges really is that fossil fuels, petrol and diesel, have been historically very cheap, and that's because we've got 100 years of experience of using those fuels. With biofuels, they can be a bit more expensive, but as we increase the amount of biofuels we use, we can drive the cost down so they are competitive with conventional fuels.
Mark Greenwood of Wilmar reckons the mandate could go a long way to making biofuels profitable. He says there's 3 examples why we're not making the most of our current production capacity. Firstly, the Wilmar refinery plant is shut down for an extra month, foregoing 5 million litres of ethanol.
We could be putting that into the market right now when we've got this fuel supply challenge, but the demand is not there. Number 2, in New South Wales, they've got ethanol production capacity, but over 100 million litres of that is exported every year rather than used locally. And the third point I'd say is that the Dalby ethanol production facility was shut down in 2020 because there just wasn't the demand or economics there to underpin that production capacity. So you can see that the current mandate is not really supporting the existing ethanol capacity.
Professor Ian O'Hara says the case for producing more fuel onshore extends beyond security of supply to jobs and regional growth.
So the more we can produce onshore, even if it's only 10 or 20% in the short term, that all helps to make our fuel more secure. It helps us to reduce our reliance on imports and, very importantly, creates jobs in our regional communities.